Okay, good morning. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for episode 2 of our service tales, the chronicles of our hero animals, dogs and horses on the line of duty, or in the line of duty. Your last episode that we gave you was live from Crufts. Slightly different environment today, where we are in southwest London, sunny southwest London. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us, Tom. We are joined around the table by 2 very inspiring individuals. I'm very honoured and privileged to have join us. Thank you for giving us your time today. We have the voice of IndyCar, a chap you may have heard somewhere. You hear his voice maybe before you see his face. A gentleman called Tom Gaymor. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for having us in your home.
Thank you very much. And everybody is probably trying to put the connection together. IndyCar and police dogs.
Yeah, you might actually struggle with that, I imagine. You've probably been asked before, right? And also around the table, a charming chap who I have just had the honour of meeting. He is, we're going to call him Sergeant Phil. He's from the dog section in the Metropolitan Police. Just Phil, Sergeant. Yeah. That was just your introduction, Sergeant Phil. And obviously Producer Tom lurking in the background. So thank you for having us. And Phil, have you got your police dog with you?
Yeah, she's downstairs. Yeah. So,
amazing. You're not going to bring her up?
Maybe later.
What's her name?
Dora.
Yeah. Actually, that's a question I had. Who names a police dog? Like, where does that start? Do you get to name them or not?
So officially, they come with a kennel name. So as soon as they're born, they're issued a kennel name through the police, and then when they get allocated on, individual handlers give them what we call a pet name. So that's the name that they will use during their life. Right. But for anything sort of medical or anything official through police lines, we always refer to them as their original kennel name dog.
I've seen on social media the litters come with an association, though, right?
Yeah, some do. So some will have. So for example, this year every litter might begin with the letter O or T. So then they will be sort of born out of that. So. Sometimes there might be a Star Wars theme or some sort of theme for a litter, but generally, yeah. So they'll get given an official title, right? And then once they're handed over to their respective handlers, then they choose, or generally the family.
Can you change that? What if you don't like it?
What, the official name?
Yeah.
No, they're stuck with the official name.
Right. Okay. Oh, it's like a pedigree name. If you have
okay. Yeah. So and then they'll get, just say as soon as they get into the family home, you then can pick and choose whatever name you want within reason.
Okay. I've got a dog called Napoleon. How would that go down in the Metropolitan Police?
Oh, that's a tough one. I wonder. I'm not sure.
Very political question.
You haven't met a Napoleon, have you?
No. I mean, we might be able to shorten it down somewhat.
Did you watch Napoleon? It was
no.
Very good,
I don't have time to
very
watch
good watch. Very good.
No. Amazing. So, Tom, tell us a little bit, like, why you're around the table with us here now.
Yes, what is the connection? So, well, we touched on it earlier, didn't we? But we'll go through it again. Up until 10 years ago, I knew nothing about policing apart from, 1 or 2 traffic stops or whatever comes with being a young racing driver. I was invited out with the borough commander when we were in the borough model, changed to BCU. Yeah. And I was just amazed by what I saw. So I came away from that experience a little bit frustrated that actually what I saw I knew nothing about. As a member of the public, we know very little about the real insight to what it's like to be a police officer, the tensions and challenges within that space, the trauma, if you like. And we don't really get to know or meet police officers. We don't get to know police officers. Police officers, on the whole, are wonderful people, apart from Phil. But you come away from these experiences meeting wonderful people, seeing wonderful things. And I felt sort of compelled to try and showcase some of that, to try and support as best I could, to reach in, be more inquisitive, to learn more. And that's seen me tread a path, a journey now for over a decade where I've got a real interest in supporting police officers, and not just police officers, also police animals, and the dogs are a really important part of that. I first went out with Phil a couple of years ago, and I knew nothing about some of the difficulties that handlers face when dogs are retired. There's not the support out there. The insurance is very difficult to come by. Handlers, if they keep their dogs, and the bond between handlers and dogs is just remarkable, so special to see. So a lot of them do keep their retired dogs, and they're left with huge bills off the back of the wear and tear that police dogs experience in their sort of workspace, but also in old age. It comes to us all, doesn't it? So charities like the NFRSA and the London Retired Police Dogs, and all the charities nationally, do wonderful things to raise money to help support those handlers and all the keepers of the retired dogs. And it's so needed. So when I learnt about the difficulties, I sort of came away thinking, well, I've got to step into to do more there as well. Because when you meet people like Phil, when you meet the dogs are wonderful. We'll meet Dora later on. You just sort of, you just feel like you've got to do more.
And Phil, we touched on it, but so you founded, so obviously you founded a charity yourself. You did that yourself, the LRPD, right? That's of your own.
Yeah, I mean, not just myself. A colleague and I founded LRPD, London Retired Police Dogs Trust, back in. The work started probably in around 2017, 2018, but we launched officially in 2019.
Right.
Just to fill that gap from our own personal experiences of financial loss, caring for our own retired police dogs. Yeah. So, LRPD was born out of our sort of our losses, but also to ensure that no one else suffered that. That difficult time, but also to make sure that dogs were being treated for their welfare and not based on whether somebody could afford to have their medical treatment. So
we're talking huge amounts of money here, sort of £10,000. People looking at remortgaging houses, real challenges. Yeah,
we're not alone. There's hundreds and hundreds of people in our position up and down the country, which is why it's so great, that other charities, NFRSA and other local charities, exist to support those dogs and horses when they're in their most hour of need.
Do you know we've got the horses? Sorry to interrupt. Just literally half a mile away.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Met horses and the city horses. You might see them later on.
Okay, there we go, Tom. That's our next venue. Down at the stables. Phil, tell us just a little bit about how long have you been a police dog handler? How many dogs have you?
So I joined the Met as a young lad. 2001, I joined and joined the dog section.
He doesn't look old enough, does he?
I'm doing the maths.
Doing the maths. And joined the dog section 2008. Relatively young in service, 8 years. Just in service alone,
And did you grow up with dogs in the home? Was it
no,
nothing at all. No. And are you a Londoner? London.
I'm a Londoner, born and bred. Just not too far across the border from where we are. Never had dogs, but always wanted to be a cop ever since I was knee high. It was the only vocation that I wanted to do. So as soon as I could, put my application in and joined up. And for me, there was only really two options. I wanted to specialise. I wanted to stay in uniform. It was either going to be a firearms officer or be a dog handler.
Wow.
And in my time on borough, on relief, we spent a lot more time with dog handlers than anything else, and it just inspired me to take that as a career path. Yeah. So, 2008 I got in and picked up my first police dog, and I'm now 4 dogs in. So,
wow.
Yeah. So,
and am I right in thinking that to be a police dog handler, it's not, without getting too in the nitty gritty of pay, but it's not a glossy role. It's not the highest paid role you could go for. You are in it for the love of the job and the dogs, right? There's no incentive to. No,
and I think it's the same with any specialism within the Met, unless you get promoted, or in the police actually, unless you get promoted, your salary is based on your rank. So you could, Tom and I both know people that carry firearms. Right. They don't get paid any more than someone that doesn't carry a firearm.
That are legally meant to carry firearms.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we'll just clarify that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know people. You know people that know people.
We're in Southwest London. Have some decorum.
But so it's rank specific, not role specific.
Right,
so I've always been frontline. Right. Up until recently, I was always a police constable, dog handler, and that was the role that I've always loved doing. Yeah. So 4 dogs in, 15, 16 years on.
He's not got divorced yet either, because and I say that in jest.
He got married yet?
I say that in jest because we've talked about this. It's a huge impact on the sort of family home and family life.
Yeah, I think the magnitude of the impact it has on your family is massively underestimated from people within the organisation and outside as well. People don't realise, having multiple dogs at home that aren't pets, although they live with you and your family, they're not pets. They are working animals. And just the logistics of.
So they come home, don't they? They come home and live with you.
Yeah. So you take them home from day one.
Yeah.
They're in big cages in the back of the garden, but that in itself. And the neighbours, for example, the noise, you're left to almost fight those battles yourself, and that adds stress to the equation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a vocation. We don't do this because it's like you say, it's a high paid job, or it's you get a lot of kudos for it or anything like that. The fact of the matter is, we do it because it's what we want to do.
Yeah.
And like Tom said, there is a lot of issues around having dogs in your homes. We haven't got the luxury of having hundreds of acres of field out the back where we can just put them out there. We live in.
He's not collected his pension yet.
A lot of us, we live in on the outskirts of London or in London, and obviously densely populated. So you do get some tricky situations, but on the whole, we manage those. There is that support from management should we need it. But
within the Met, what are the dog breeds that are sort of included? Are they all the classics, the German Shepherds, the Belgian Malinois? I met one yesterday actually that a Belgian herding dog. I'm not familiar with that breed, but
Dutch herder.
Okay. What did I say? Belgian herder. Okay, all right.
Similar.
Dutch, across the border. In the Netherlands herding breed.
So we're pretty standard. So Belgian Malinois, not so many, but we do have them. German Shepherds are obviously our predominant what we call general purpose police dogs, and then we then have our search dogs, so spaniels, Labradors, cockers. Generally it's the ones that you would see out and about on the TV.
Yeah.
And it's worth touching, as we sort of talk about the breeds there, that the spectrum of deliverables in terms of the calls that you go to, but also the dogs and their skill sets is phenomenal, because you will carry, I think it's a general purpose dog, and then a search dog that will be accredited to search for certain different things, and their roles could not be further from each other.
Yeah, so your general purpose dog is what you would see your German Shepherd being, trained to find people, detain people, trained to find property, and then potentially bolt on courses, so public order trained, so working with other dogs in those sort of environments, firearm support dogs that work closely with our firearms officers. So we have a GP dog, general purpose dog, but then we give them bolt on courses as well, depending on their suitability. And then you've got your search dogs, which are trained in all sorts of things. So my retired one, I've got a retired spaniel that was trained in to locate drugs, firearms and cash. But you've also got dogs that are what we call victim recovery dogs, that obviously can look at crime scenes
Crazy,
and
isn't it?
murders.
Absolutely crazy.
It's incredible. I remember going to Heathrow to work with one of the dogs looking for cash, and it had 100% hit rate. So it was...
Can they come to my house?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It was looking or sniffing the cases as you came into to check-in, and it didn't get one wrong. Now, inside these cases, when they were opened, was sort of bundles of cash, large amounts of money that was sort of tucked away, buried under clothes, whatever it is. And still to this day, I just don't understand how the dog can literally always signal on that. It's incredible.
Yeah, they're, I think we only scratch the surface on what their capabilities are.
Wow.
We're ever evolving. From what we've got now. I mean, we've now got digital media detection dogs, so they can locate the tiniest SIM cards.
That's in the prisons.
We're evolving all the time. But the ability of these dogs, I think we're really just sort of starting to scratch the
that
surface.
scent thing. So when you sort of, back when I was growing up, it was kind of Sherlock Holmes and the bloodhounds. Bloodhounds were the sort of the ones that you sent out, but because their ears create this sort of vortex, don't they, of scent, which then comes up, and they can. But the dogs that we're using in the services today actually aren't bloodhounds, right? We haven't got bloodhounds.
No,
that would be too specific.
Yeah, I mean,
but they don't.
We don't have these Lassie type of dogs that come back and tell you that poor little Johnny's fallen down the well and follow me and I'll take you there, or the bloodhounds where they sniff the t-shirt and then they get the scent of that person and then they go off and find them. It doesn't work like that.
No.
For example, I think, quote me on numbers, but a human's got roughly around 5 million scent receptors in their nose. A dog has probably got around 550 million. So the magnitude on their ability is huge, and that is their predominant sense to be able to do the work that they do, whether it's, say, finding people or finding a substance.
So if you get a call, let's talk about just a bit of the nitty gritty of kind of police work in London. And I know I'd like to hear from Tom, actually, because I know Tom has been very privileged to experience these ride-alongs, which is something I'm quite new to. So I want to hear a little bit about that. But so if you get a call somewhere, who allocates? So there's a gangster. And something's going down. Who allocates a dog unit? Like what qualifies for the dogs to attend, if you're able to kind of say?
So our role is a support mechanism to all the other officers, whether that's frontline police officers, whether that's specialist trained officers, firearms officers, or detectives that require the services of one of our dogs. So,
so the officer would then make that call.
Yeah. So anybody can request support of a dog.
Right. Okay.
All we really need to know is what kind of dog they want.
I'd have them everywhere.
It's worth pointing out, just to simplify it, if you look at Phil's PPE over there, he's got 2 radios. He'll also have a radio in the car.
Personal protection equipment.
Yeah.
PPE.
So his Met vest.
Okay.
There are other brands available depending on what constabulary you're in. I know that's a contentious point. It's not a Met vest, is it?
Surely that can't be contentious.
We're in London, so we can get away with that.
Okay.
So basically, you will have your radio channels for the local area. So all the local area, the response teams, the 999 calls that are coming in for that local area. Phil will be listening to those, and he will cover a much wider area as a dog handler than just those officers that are on that local BCU. He will also have, for layman's terms, a firearms channel that he'll be listening to. He'll have an ops channel for pursuits, Pan London, that kind of thing. So it's a really busy and intense space in the car, because there's lots of different communication going on. So you could be listening to an emergency button activation on the BCU, or you could be listening to a car chase that's going on, and sometimes those all mix together and they will split channels, and all the while you're single crewed, you've got to navigate traffic, you've got to drive with your sirens and blue lights on, and all the navigate through how difficult that is in a busy area of London, depending on what time it is, and get yourself to that location, follow the radio traffic. It's really difficult. There's so much going on, and it's not organized chaos as such, or unorganized chaos. And this is something that I don't think we see enough of. The spaces that police officers operate within, the framework and the processes behind that, they're really, really robust. So the training, to the decision making, to the risk assessments, to the tactics available, these are all risk assessed. You have TAC advisors, you have people that are authorizing certain tactics and terminating others. There's a lot going on. And you've got to then manage your animals as well. It's a really, really highly skilled and difficult environment. And I just wish we celebrated the professionalism and the skills more, and had a better understanding as to just what it's like to try and digest all this information on the radio, try and navigate yourself to the scene, or the pursuit, or whatever it is that's going on, and do it safely as well.
Phil, I think you're blushing.
It's that sun coming through.
You're like, that's all right.
They are so humble though. It's just what we do. You'll hear that up and down the country. Police officers say that, and that's why we're doing this today, and also why we do what we do generally. But I mean, no, that's not. You got the welfare of the dogs, all of that happening, and then you got to think, okay, the dog hasn't had a drink, or I've got to go and let the dog cock his leg, or you got all of those things to factor in. Other than, and one bit also, can I just say, you've got fear. We're human beings,
completely. And
you've got adrenaline. And some of these incidents that police officers are going to are very, very dangerous and traumatic. And they see the worst of society. And some of the things that they experience, they rush towards that danger whilst we're running away. And all the while, that's unfolding on the radio. It's okay when you're watching the news and you've got all the facts afterwards, but what's unfolding on the radio and the calls coming in isn't necessarily what is actually happening. I know that sounds silly, but it's really difficult to piece all of that together. So you get there and you've got seconds to know everything without knowing everything, and seconds to react and make a decision. And they've got their national decision making model, or whatever it is, that is difficult to digest at the best of times, never mind when you've got somebody in front of you, or whoever it is that may be an incredibly dangerous individual. I've got so much respect for what they do. It's really impressive.
Tell us, Phil, like what obviously, without being specific, have you got any moments to share with us that are sort of like, holy crap, that dog has just completely blown my mind with its with its performance, or just what its capabilities, or
I think they're amazing animals. I mean, don't get me wrong, you have frustrating days, but I choose to do this for a living. This is what I signed up to do. These dogs come into this because they've been bred specifically for the role. So it's not their choice to be in this position. But I always take it back to, what do they do it for? They do it for 2 meals a day and to get their toy. And everything they do, that putting themselves in harm's way, finding criminals, finding evidence, is done for the love of that toy and the love of the handler. So
do you remember the suspects on we went to, and then we went on that trek through the golf course
when you had your suede boots on?
that weren't suede afterwards. But do you remember that? I mean, it was about 3 to 5 kilometers, this trek, and suspects on is essentially people that are in a property, commercial, residential, and we were called to it, and the dog tracked these people through the back garden, over the back fence, through forests, over golf courses, and it's pitch black, and you don't, the dog is going at, what felt like 100 miles an hour, and you are just running into foliage. We were trying to get over.
This was you two, was it? And which dog?
This was Quinn, who's recently retired. He
Right,
retired
okay.
at Christmas. He was sort of, just before Dora came on the scene.
Right.
So.
It was good fun, really good fun, and I was just covered it head to toe in everything. Like people cover gateposts and walls and stuff with tar, and you're trying to get over it. Do you remember? It's just
It was an eventful shift, that one, wasn't it? But every deployment of a dog is a real positive step forward for us.
Mm-hmm.
We get these dogs at 8 weeks old, and we want to then, in 15, 16 months' time, want them to be able to go out on the streets and perform the role of what they've been licensed to achieve. And everything is a massive step forward. And I look back to my first dog, Obi, and the London riots is the biggest one that I would probably say. Sorry, London disturbances is the biggest. Is the biggest. The high profile one that that he was involved in, and I was only a dog handler for a couple of years, and was patrolling Heathrow Airport, and then all of a sudden down to Tottenham. Absolute chaotic scenes that I used to watch on The Bill or London's Burning, and those sorts of programs when I was growing up. And
I still watch The Bill. It's on every Sunday morning.
Tony Stamp,
Gold, yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Reg Hollis.
That's it. But and you're put into that environment, and you've got buildings ablaze, you've got things being thrown at you, and you are that last line of defence.
He flippantly says you've got things being thrown at you. When you actually arrive in these places or to these incidents, I'm sat in the back of the police car. It's not lost on me that this is incredibly dangerous. This is a million miles away.
Do you sign a disclaimer for that to go out on these ride-alongs?
Yeah, you do. And do you know what? I grew up racing cars, breaking bones, breaking up, whatever it is, and it's just a pleasure to go out with them. But it is a really difficult space that they operate within. I use that word a lot, but just take a moment when you're listening to this, just to imagine what it feels like to be face to face with someone who is intent on injuring you, the public, themselves. They've got an offensive weapon. It's 2 a.m. and there's nothing. You are the last point of call. And you have to rush towards that. You have to deal with that. Anything can happen. All you've got is your courage and your training. And I don't think we dwell on that anywhere near enough, because that is just so courageous and brave.
But for us, we're just doing our job.
Here he goes again.
So
it's just what we do.
And that is it. And Tom spoke of fear, but for us, it's adrenaline more than anything else. We train hard. We go into situations during our training, and that starts at week 1 of your when you sign up to be a police officer, all the way through to your continual training. 23 years. On that, I still do. And yes, you come across things that are trying and testing, but ultimately. Our job is to serve and protect the people and the communities in London. And, we go and do that on a day-to-day basis, whether it's high visibility patrols or whether it's actually deploying ourselves and our dogs to deal with something like the London disturbances, or, looking for a weapon that's been discarded, or looking for, suspects that have been involved in a burglary or a robbery, or, that have committed serious crimes.
It's a really good point that you touch on there around the sort of evidential trail, because when you have a pursuit or a decamp or whatever it is and people run away from the car, apprehending the offender or the suspects is one thing, but trying to build that evidential trail is another thing. looking for the car keys, for example, looking for offensive weapons. That's really important because, yes, you've got rid of the initial threat, but there's a much bigger picture at play here where this is now going to be turned into an investigation. This is going to be handed over to detectives.
Yeah.
And
if you really think about that, actually, you just think about
and
that
that's-
first call,
the
that
dogs
first
do
response,
that.
but actually that backup that's
But
required.
that's
for
what,
yeah.
you know, when you spoke about who calls us and for what, you know, we could, our initial call could be that they're chasing a suspect or they've got a vehicle that's failed to stop and they're trying to get that car stopped and they want a dog to help apprehend anyone that, you know, flees from that scene or from the car. That can then quickly come to a stop and those suspects could be apprehended. And then all of a sudden it then turns to, right, okay, what do we need to do now?
how do you link them?
Okay, something's been thrown out the car. We can't find the car keys. Well, we've got items that have been stolen from a burglary that are missing. You know, so something that's been recently handled or recently discarded by somebody. You know, we train with our dogs to find things that have been thrown away or hidden. So it could be car keys, could be jewelry, could be a purse or a wallet, or it could be you know, another suspect that's hiding
Really
that's not been
considered
found.
that,
So.
And what kind of equipment or tech of the dogs do they wear? Can you equip the dogs with now? Obviously, that's changing all the time. But when you're going on duty, do the dogs wear? They obviously wear some kind of. What do they wear?
It's
A
different in
lead and a
different
collar.
It's different in different forces, though.
No, surely they've got like a stab vest or something. Seriously?
Yeah.
Some do now, though, don't they? Some
So,
forces.
I mean,
Is that your choice or?
no, I mean, you know, the police have trialled loads of different things. For example, you know, boots for dogs and things like that when they're going into situations where
They're really
they
funny.
could end up cutting their paws or something like that. But it becomes more of a hindrance than it does to help the dog. So in our minds, we think, we really want to protect the dog, we really want to help it. But ultimately, the dog spends more time trying to chew those boots off than it does doing what we're asking it to do.
It's like watching Tom run across the golf course wearing suede boots. Is that more of a hindrance than a?
I think he's learnt his lesson there. But
okay, so I thought it was because obviously in the fire service, they've got cameras and
yeah, no. So we do have some dogs do deploy with stab vests on.
I guess it all depends where you're going.
I mean, my dog's never been deployed with anything other than a harness and a line or a lead.
Right, okay.
And that's that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's hoop. Talk us to the hoop.
What hoop?
The hoop that if you've
toy.
got the dog's hoop, you're safe.
Is that
Yeah,
the correct term? Is it?
Well,
Can we
it could
refer
be a ring, could be a ball, could be whatever. But yeah, ultimately, like I said before, the dog does everything for that end game, for that end product.
Sure.
So
For the hoop.
you know, it's that they thrive on doing what they do for that.
Yeah.
toy.
Sometimes when you track suspects and the dog doesn't find anyone, the handlers will hide someone just so the dog has that end game. I remember doing that with the hoop, and I was in the ring.
Phil's ring.
For the purposes of the podcast, ring. And I was in these roadworks. It was sort of like a metal fence, and the handler said to me, right, just maybe wait 10 barks before you hand the ring over to the dog. So it's sort of 1 a.m, it's pitch black, and I can hear the sort of panting. I won't do an impression, but I can hear the panting and the paws and the dog running around and getting closer. And then it just came face to face with me, and it sort of charged at the metal fence, and the noise and the fence resonating back and forth, and the dog just literally there. And I remember it was probably half a bark before I handed there was no way that I was waiting 10 barks.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have got eaten at any stage.
2,
So,
3.
exactly, I was absolutely petrified.
Yeah.
But yeah, that ring just ends everything. It's amazing how quickly the dog then just turns into a playful puppy.
Well, that's the ideal scenario. Unfortunately, it doesn't always pan out like that. But.
The success rate of a dog on duty has to be high in terms of like the fear factor, this sort of inbuilt that we've got as humans. And if a dog is baring its teeth and barking and growling and spitting, and that's that's the design, right? They're designed to create.
You don't get that at 8 weeks old,
No.
Our success rate.
I know some children are pretty similar.
Our success rate is really high. We have our own breeding program, and I know other forces do that as well. But the success rate is based on a testing around sort of 6 weeks old,
Right.
to see.
They test the bite strength?
It's all just on how the dogs react to certain situations.
Okay.
And then when they get allocated to their handler at 8 weeks old-ish, if we're talking from pup to working dog, that is where the work starts, and that is where the dog's ability comes out week after week, month after month, through the training process that is in place. And the support of those instructors who work tirelessly to make sure that the dog and handler teams are up to a certain level, to ensure they're ready for a course, a 3-month intensive course when the dog hits around about 14, 15 months old.
Right.
So the work starts from then. Of course, not every dog, they're not robots, so not every dog is going to be successful, but the work that you put in as a handler from the day that you get allocated that dog to not even the end of the course, but till the end of that dog's working life, determines how effective and how good that dog is going to be. Now, everybody's learning from the moment you pick up your first dog to your third or fourth dog. It's not the same as picking up a Glock or a baton or a can of CS. Every animal is different. It's got different temperaments, it's got different behaviours and different traits. And as a handler, over time, you learn to adapt yourself to make sure that you're getting the best out of that dog.
And it's quite a challenge, isn't it, if you're on the course and you're a new handler and you've got a new dog, because you might have someone like yourself who's on the course, who's on their sort of third, fourth dog.
And it works both ways, because with my first dog, I was the only novice handler on a course that was full of Belgian Malinois, and I had the only German Shepherd. And obviously, knowing nothing about dogs, spending 3 months working alongside some really experienced dog handlers, every day for me was an absolute panic. Every day I feared I was going to lose my dog. It was going to get chopped because it wasn't doing things that other dogs were doing.
Right.
Unbeknown to me, at the time, Mallies and Shepherds work completely different. So, they might be more advanced in one area and less advanced in another. But ultimately, I think it's like education. The ideal trajectory is going to be, a nice slow, steady peak going up to hitting the pass mark. When the reality is, in education, dog training, and any other environment you're in, it's peaks and troughs. 1 minute you're flying high on the crest of a wave, the next minute the dog doesn't do something you want it to do, and the pit of your stomach falls out, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to be the end. So.
How nervous were you on your first pass-out parade? Have you been to a pass-out parade?
No.
They're awesome. Just explain to us what goes on and how nervous you were.
Yeah, so pass-out parades are sort of your end-of-course pageantry. Is that a good word to use?
Yeah,
it's where you put your tunic
it's the ceremony, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
and it's you go through all of the stages that you've been trained to do. So you'll do some biting exercises, you'll do some obedience, you'll do some some seeking and all sorts of different.
But in
elements.
front of a crowd.
I was going to say, with an audience.
You've got high-ranking police officers there that come down to you might have a celebrity come down to be the
Tom.
Tom's been down before. He was making a tea, I think, wasn't he?
I was in charge of the car park.
But
you had a high vis on.
But that is more pressure doing that than it is anything
car
else.
Park.
Not the car park, no.
Oh,
That's the easy job.
Right.
But actually, doing those pass outs. But I honestly think they're an integral part of what we do and why we do it. Because, as I said before, this isn't a dog and handler team. A lot of people have background support, families, children, even parents that sort of, that really sort of have an impact on your life the moment you get that dog. And it's an opportunity for us to be able to showcase what we've done over those last 15, 16 months, but also to thank them for their, unwavering support, because, it's really not easy. We've had some really difficult conversations in our house over the years because, you end up collecting dogs, so I've now got 2 retired dogs at home and a working dog.
Carl's dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, and I'll go back to that thing. It's a vocation. We do it because we love the work that we do, and we love the opportunities that come out of working with police dogs, but it comes at a cost, and that is the impact it has on your family.
You have to license, don't you? Is that what they call it?
You license every year,
every once a year, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
so you get your initial license when you've passed the course,
Right.
and then you get retested every year.
Right.
But between those two times, you have a certain amount of days allocated for continual training. So we'll go on maybe 12 days, I think 13 days annual training to make sure that the dog's where it should be, and then at your allocated time throughout the year, you get a day's assessment,
Right, okay.
which then determines whether you can continue to operate as a team on the streets, or whether you're going to need some remedial training.
Right.
So,
And tell us where.
I was going to say, are there officers that are like, if there's only so many roles, I suppose, as dog handlers, are there other officers that are kind of like biting at the bit, as it were, to get a job as a
yeah, so I mean, when I joined 2008, the application process, there were 10 jobs, and I was one of over 300 applicants to get one of those 10 jobs.
Wow.
So it was a very sought after role, and still is to an extent. I think the difference what we're seeing now is that it comes with some sort of stipulations in terms of you need a garden, which means if you need a garden, you need a house, and not a flat. So the problem is in the housing market now is people are finding it quite difficult to get on the housing market, to get housing ladder to get a house.
So potentially you could lose out on having a really good officer, really good handler.
Well,
but because
you've
they
got
haven't
officers
a
living
house.
in Lincolnshire now and places like that that
Right,
are commuting into the Met.
Yeah, we
Right.
do
Just to give you an
we do have
example.
people that live
So
quite a way out.
trying to buy your first house in London
with
is
a guard.
incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that is that's a non-negotiable. You need to be able to house
Sure.
a police dog and in a compound in the garden. So. So there's still sought after roles, and I think I think it probably I might be being biased, but it's definitely up there as one of the top specialist roles you can get being a uniformed officer.
Yeah.
And it's predominantly carried out by police constables. So
Right.
the entry level officer into the police service has one of the best roles that you can get. Police sergeants also have working dogs, but other than that, inspectors and above, they're more managerial roles. So it's a, dare I say, a lower ranking specialism. But it's one that
It's up there.
yeah,
It's
one that-
operational. I think that's
Yeah.
that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I think that every day is so different, and you can really make it what you want it to be. There's so much scope to get involved in absolutely everything in terms of the demand, and all the officers that are turning out to incidents or whatever it is when they know the dog van's on its way. It's really reassuring, and you provide a lot of happiness to whenever you go to the fun days or the family day. Everyone loves the dogs. Everyone
Well,
loves
that's
to
the thing.
see
They've
the
got to be
skills.
versatile enough. I mean, you call them general purpose, but they've got to be able to go and do a meet and greet at a local primary school. In terms of from the PR point of view, right? They've got to
Yeah,
have
and that all
sort of-
comes as part of the training. You will get some dogs that aren't suitable for that. And that's just their DNA and their makeup. But ultimately, you want a dog that you can switch from, chasing and detaining someone to then the following day, like you say, go into a community event where people can come up and pat the dog and meet the dog. That would be wonderful. And I'm thankfully I've had that with all of my 3 previous dogs. This one's work in progress, but she's still young. But
I need to see Dora.
It's
before-
something that we all need to do, because being those community focus events are high up in what we want to achieve. We want to be out there, we want to be visible, we want not just the local officers to be able to call on us, but actually we want to be seen by members of the public as well.
Their ability to switch on and off is unique. When you're on a blue light run, listening to, not every dog does this, but I've certainly been out with dogs that sort of howl You know, they almost howl with excitement, and they know what they're going to. They know they're going to be worked. It's you can feel the anticipation and the adrenaline build, not just in the handler, but the dog. It's amazing.
But similarly, you'll get other dogs that will be fast asleep in the back of the van,
Right.
all the way
Really?
there on blue
And
light
then-
runs.
and then-
Yeah, completely. And then as soon as you stop, as soon as you
Okay.
switch the engine off, that's it. They pop up.
Right.
Right, we're going to
That's
work.
it.
What do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? Who are we going to find?
Yeah.
So.
It's like other police officers, aren't they? I suppose that some are excited about.
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Yeah. It's and
Those.
it's I've been doing this a long time, and you do need to take time to reflect on how lucky we are to be able to experience.
Tell us
what we
kind of where you've
experience.
been with your dogs. Like,
Well, I mean, we're a Pan London resort, so we cover
Windsor
the whole of
Castle.
London. Yeah, so we obviously we're there covering the security patrols at Windsor Castle. We do sort of Buck Palace and things like that after garden parties and and other events. But certainly with the search dogs as well, you get to see some amazing locations. I was lucky enough to be a part of the events that have happened recently. The Queen's funeral, for example. We were there searching, making sure that the area was safe. All the dignitaries that were coming in and out. We see some amazing places.
and the dogs aren't phased at all by. And I saw a photo or something of dogs in a helicopter all going up.
Yeah, so we do.
Blows my mind. Where's the room? Is there a harness that fits? They just sit on your lap.
Yeah, no.
And that's just Phil's private helicopter.
If only. So we've got obviously the eye in the sky that supports us, and they're a great asset to us as dog handlers, because obviously they can pretty much put us into a garden where potentially they've got a heat source which could take us 4 or 5 gardens to get to.
Hang
so
on a
they do.
minute. They would land. You would get on. They would then go up. They would then take you and then drop you in a.
They do land, don't they?
Yeah, they have landed before. I mean, it's not a regular occurrence.
Right.
Things like that are probably your more serious events that may have happened in previous times. But the training for that is there. So 2 dogs up in the helicopter. Helicopter will lift. You'll do a fly, and then potentially could drop you in a location where you could then be retrieved by a car to take you to wherever. But we did a lot of training for that. I know dogs that were being trained during the preparations for London 2012 Olympic Games. Working with the crews up there. So it's an environment that our dogs need to be comfortable in.
Yeah.
As I say, firearm support dogs. They're put into situations where potentially looking at dealing with armed suspects who do not want to get caught. So the only other than you've seen London on an afternoon, it's absolutely heaving. You can't it take you sort of a good half an hour to get across London on a blue light run. So as I say, I've only trained in that environment, but
Takes Phil 20 minutes. Seen him in action.
But yeah, it's one of those assets that we've got. But predominantly, they're up while we're searching anyway. So if they're up, we always know that they're going to be able to give us a direction of potentially, house number 42. We've got heat source in that back garden, so it gives us a little bit of an edge to save a bit of time and prevent that person from getting away.
Well, speaking of assets, Tom Gaymor, your passion for the police service, how in your day-to-day life, your other work, broadcasting, do your colleagues know? I guess they can't avoid how passionate you are about the police force, and they probably must learn a lot from you. Being able to retell stories of. It's quite unique, right, to have that passion. Yeah,
it's one of my particular bugbears that we don't, especially in today's day and age of digital media, see that sort of transparent, unedited insight into policing anywhere near enough. And I think we've got the platforms and the facility to do it. It's just not readily available. I like to storytell a lot. I like to share my experiences. I'm passionate about supporting the police officers, and I just like to objectively talk about what it is they do. It's not blindly subjective. It's just talking about what it is we went to, the resources that we had, and so forth. And so many people, it's a bit like the police interceptors or the traffic cops. That's on primetime TV slots because it hits that primetime audience figure, because a lot of people are actually interested in it. And that belt of people I tend to see in my other work and the motorsport paddocks, and people now know that. It took a while because everyone was like, why do you keep tweeting about policing? Like, what are you doing? But now people are sort of, the people that follow me, they recognise that I'm married to a police officer. They recognise that I'm a trustee at the Flint House National Rehabilitation Centre. They know that I've got this interest, that I am committed to this journey, and they're really interested to hear some of the stories. And it's not just the wonderful work that goes on, it's the tensions and challenges as well. You know, policing is obviously, through the years of adversity, been hit really hard, incredibly hard. And so people, when they ring 999, they want to know why certain things haven't happened or their expectations haven't been met. And it's the police that wear the public disdain on that. But actually, it's not their fault. They are doing everything that they can with the resources they have available to them. And that sort of resource versus demand equation has been heavily skewed because their resources have been slashed so dramatically. And it's really hard for the police officers to do what they do, to see the trauma that they see, to be injured as much as, and to face the threats that they face, and to always come up short, to always be viewed in a negative light because they weren't there at the right time. There are failings here, there are failings there. You know, they're doing their best with the resources that they have. And so if I can just help share that message and help raise awareness, underpinning knowledge is key here when it comes to informing opinions, then I'll continue to bang the drum.
Amazing. And have you got room for me in the back at some point?
There's no back seats.
If you're in the back, you're really in
you're
trouble.
In a cage.
I'm very good with
you might not enjoy that.
I'm better with dogs with people sometimes.
But there's always a spare seat at the front, so you'd
Thank
be
you.
more than welcome.
I know we've been in jest, but you truly are somebody, you know, a member of the community, and a role that we need, we salute, we trust, and we value. And you know, thank you. And
listen, I mean, I'm just one of thousands and thousands of police officers out there that put the uniform on and go and do their best every day. You know, we don't always get it right.
No, that's all we can ask.
But we are, you know, we're all in this for the right reasons, and we're passionate about what we do. And as I said before, it's a vocation, and we come into this as human beings first and foremost. And people, I think, forget that. But ultimately, you know, we do the best that we can in the environments that we're working in.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Tom. I think it's time to go and meet Dora. Have you met Dora, Tom?
I have.
Oh, you have already?
I saw Dora when she arrived.
Oh, okay.
I was more excited to see Dora than I was Phil.
Right, yeah. But no, thank you all. Thanks for joining us, and we'll look forward to following the progress of the LRPD and obviously the good work that NFRSA does, and we'll keep up the good fight, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.